Welcome to Tech Time. My topic today is on Visual Basic Scripting, in which I'll be demonstrating my coding samples on how to 1. Connect VBScript to a SQL Server style data source, and 2. How to return the data to a container. Being an interpreted language opposed to a compiled language, scripts are essentially run from the operating system's shell command, with instructions stored in one big block of memory. Compiled languages are usually contained in a standalone, like an executable or DLL. Since VB is the native language of Microsoft, I can manipulate objects similar to object-oriented languages. I like scripting because A, is free, and B, is fun. So here's the application. It's called SharpWare.hta, and let me open it up. In this example, you see I already have code established in the text editor. This type of application is called an HTA, or hypertext application, similar to that of an HTML page. All the code that you see at the top of the page, the doc type, head, title, is standard equipment for every web page. The main part of the code, however, starts at the script language equals, in this case, it will be VBScript. And here is where you establish all of your VB code. Notice the option explicit, and VB, always keep that present because it'll help you, it'll help error check your code, keep you from using duplicate statements and all that kind of jazz. Also your dimension statements, and that's where your variables go. As you can see, I'm using a dimension statement called current path. That particular statement searches the current path to file folder for the data source I need. In this case, I'm using Microsoft Access, so that particular statement will search the actual folder that this particular application resides in and grab the Microsoft Access database that's sitting right next to it. Next, I have constant statements that forces a variable's value to be held without changing. That is, whatever value I initially set, it will maintain it. Now I'm going to jump all the way down my program to a subroutine called sub-show-values. This particular routine is where the connection starts. I've used a string called SQLTutorial to get the SQL parameters from a pull-down box that I'll be creating a little bit later. Now notice that the string I created called SQLTutorial is equaling or referencing another group of words called document.gui.lstvalues.value. That document.stuff is part of the HTML. It's a way you can connect to the HTML objects, such as a box or a text box or a button, and therefore the data in that text box, the HTML text box, can be now thrown back to the sub and to the string that's in the sub, and you can actually reference that type of data, and now I can manipulate the data and control it. Next, I create a connection ODBC object called connect. ODB is a native object in Microsoft that allows access to SQL or to the jet engine for Microsoft Access. And after setting the connection, then I open it with the open command. Once opened, I need to treat the data as record sets. So I'm setting the record set string to this record set string to three things. I set the record set to its own object. I inherit the properties of the above connect object into the record set, and I set the record set with the ability to have a variable put into it from my list box that I'll be making later. Now what we need to do is get the data. So we can scoop the data from Microsoft Access by using a do loop, a do until loop. And we do this by choosing the name of the attributes that we'll need. In this case, I need the last name, I need the first name, and I need an ID from this Microsoft Access database. So this loop is going to keep running and running and running. And as it's doing that, as you can see, as the loop is moving until it gets to the end of the file, I have an object that I call the OBJ option, and I have the object set and it's equal to another document statement that creates a type of text container for it. This object, that OBJ option, I have it as .text. It will equal the record sets or the data that's being taken out of the Microsoft Access database, and it's being returned as text. When it's moving, also it's compiling the data into, when you go down to the document.gui.listbox, etc. So it's putting it in a virtual list box, and it's continuing to do that. As you see the next statement below, that rs.move. The move is just a way of moving to the next record set, to the next, until the loop gets finally to the end of the file, and then it will end, and that's where the sub will end, and it'll be able to bring the data back to something visual.